Wednesday, June 19th of 2019. And we're sitting out front of a little coffee clash here. And yesterday we walked by and there was a fellow sitting at this very table, although it was in a different location, because we just dragged it out of the rain, by the name of Eric. And so we got involved in a conversation and he started telling us about his eyewitness experiences with UFOs.
Hello everybody, my name is Eric Fox. I was born in Pueblo, Colorado and raised for a good amount of my life in the San Luis Valley in a little town called Alamosa.
The intriguing thing about Eric's experiences, one at which he was young, I think it was early teens, maybe younger. 11. And the other happened just recently, was they characterized two different kinds of UFO phenomena that we hadn't heard about before.
And the reason I'm here with you on film today is to tell you about a UFO experience I had in Alamosa, Colorado. It was the first year that Super Nintendo came out, say 85, say 86, somewhere in there. And me and my best friend at the time, it was a Friday, beautiful sunny Friday. I went home so that I could wait for my father to get home so I could receive my allowance. And it was all about the allowance when you were a little kid. So we were playing Super Mario Brothers and all of a sudden we heard this odd sound. And the odd sound immediately sounded to me like something that had happened a week previously with my father being there at the house. And what it was the chimney has a sweep on the top that blows in the wind, and it got caught up in the wind and was making a funny sound that was similar to like a whoop, 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 whoop. And that started again when we were playing the video game, and I started to tell my friend that, oh, don't worry about that sound, it's just the chimney. And as soon as I said that, I stopped the game, hit pause, and we ran to the south window. When we reached the window, this sound became overwhelming, and we looked up and there was a craft.
The first experience when he was 11 basically occurred at his home in Colorado, and he will explain the details, but the intriguing thing about it is the nature of the craft. It looked like somebody had cobbled the thing together in their garage.
And this craft was, in my mind, huge. But as a kid, everything's huge when you're a little kid. And I've traveled back to the site where I grew up at this house. My father built this house. So I've been back several times. And putting everything in perspective, I now know that this ship that we were looking at, craft, was about 15 feet in diameter. And it was hovering off the ground at about 20 feet. And it was slightly rotating in a counterclockwise position. If you're looking up at it, it would be counterclockwise.
It wasn't very large, maybe 15 feet across, had rivets on it, was a bit of a rust bucket, and he'll give more details and explain his experience later, but it was very intriguing because it suggests that not all UFOs are shiny, spiffy, and come from elsewhere.
So as we're watching this craft, it's slowly moving to the north, and it is crossing over the edge of my house, and we watch it until we lose view of it because of the eave on the house. As soon as we lost sight of it, we look at each other, what was that? And instead of running out the back door and look up underneath it, we go straight to the other side of the house, look out the next window, and the sound's there, so we know it's still there. So we're waiting for it to come into view. It finally comes into view, and we watch the object fully come into view out from the house eave. And there's a canal, a water canal that separates the city line to the county line right next to my house. And within about 15 yards, the sound of the craft started changing. And it literally took off so fast, it looked like a pea because it was so far away, or it literally shrunk down into an object, somewhere in the inch size range. But that was it. It made this incredible humming noise. It attracted us, we saw it, and then the sound changed, the pitch got higher, and it was just gone, just like that.
This looked like somebody managed to pull one off for themselves.
But the crazy thing about this is that it wasn't this shiny, metallic, amazing craft that you'd think a UFO would be. It was a rust bucket. It was blue and purple and orange, and gray.
It changed colors?
Metal. No, it didn't change colors. It had been worn. It looked like it had entered our atmosphere and been burnt up and been sitting out back of the house getting rust on it. I mean, you name it. It looked like a rusty piece of metal and had extreme heat on the rusty piece of metal as well. And the odd thing about this craft is that it was very obvious. You could tell how it was put together. It was sheets of metal, and every seam of sheet of metal had another sheet of metal over it with rivets holding it down on both sides of the seam. So that was very odd even as a kid, noticing that it had rivets. So that made me think, you know, this could be ours. We could be re-engineering something, or who knows? Just broke down in the wrong spot and figured out their coordinates and took off again.
Wow, those are sophisticated thoughts for an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Perhaps what we should do is give you an idea of our background in this. I think it was 2017 we put out a video called The Truth and Nothing But. And this was our first declaration of any interest in UFOs. And basically, you'll find it on this channel, Golden Phoenix Published, and we outline the series of steps using a glyph called the Tree of Life that you'd have to go through in order to determine if UFOs existed and what they were. So we used a bunch of movie segments, like from The X-Files, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Contact, etc., to illustrate various steps you'd have to go through. At the time, we didn't realize that within a couple of years, there would be revelations from our own government, particularly the revelations about the ATIP program associated with the Nimitz encounters with UFOs in 2004, that we're going to verify the existence of UFOs beyond a shadow of a doubt. And everything shifted from whether or not they existed to what they are and who's behind them. The old documentary questions: who, what, when, where, how they were. Well, we went on 2 years ago after we were at the solar eclipse in Oregon. We were in California, and then we actually saw our first instance of a craft that we could not identify. And that craft moved across our field of view very early in the morning while we were traveling near a lake in Northern California. I think it was Elsinore, but I'm not sure if that's the name of the lake. Anyway, after that we did our next major video on UFOs, which was called Gone Extraterrestrial, where we went to visit the town Rachel, which is very close to Groom Lake, where Area 51 is, and we did a video there. In a moment, I'll give a quick characterization of what we saw at about 5 o'clock in the morning that probably has an 85% probability of being a non-conventional aerial phenomenon. One of the things about this phenomenon is most people are very incredulous about other people's reports.
Sure, as we should be.
As we should be. As we should be. It's not the kind of phenomena people see every day. I want to ask you, is there anything anybody could ever say to you that would dissuade you from the fact that you hadn't seen anything out of the ordinary? Could anybody ever say anything to you?
No, the only way that they could say that I didn't see something out of the ordinary is to show me their ship. If it make it ordinary to have a ship out back, yes.
Now, a lot of people report that they have a sense when they encounter these things, a sense about them.
Right.
You mentioned when we were talking about this yesterday, you had a sense about the craft and its occupants. You said something about it looked like you had a sense that it was a pilot training exercise, something like that.
Yeah, the fact that we're in the San Luis Valley here, Alamos is right in the middle of San Luis Valley, and just north of the valley is NORAD, the command center for the Air Force Base. And so my first thought, because as a kid there, before they made it illegal, the jets would fly over the mountain range and they would come down about 2 telephone poles high off the valley, and then they would hit their sonic boom. They would and that boom was just amazing. You know, it was something fun to watch and see and hear, but now they're not allowed to do it. You never see them do it anymore. So my first thought was that, oh, what happened here? They got the wrong coordinates on their GPS system and they showed up at the wrong spot, and they quickly figured it out and they were back at the base. But that was just, I don't know where those thoughts come from, you know?
Well, who knows where thoughts originate?
A little
anyway.
kid.
Now, in a second, you're also going to tell us about a more recent experience as an adult, right? So,
Yes. Well,
So we had just camped the night before at a place called, was it Mill Creek, California, and we were on our way to head home towards Tucson, but by way of Susanville and Reno, etc., one of our routes. And we're driving along. The lake is to our left. It's a rather large lake, and I'll put a caption on where it was. We're driving along, and right across our field of view, in the windshield, a elliptically shaped craft moved rather quickly across the field of view, showed no flashing lights, looked metallic, moved fairly quickly. It was only about 10 degrees above the horizon, and it went from the tree line on the left to the tree line on the right. And it did this in about 4 seconds. Well, I did a whole bunch of calculations based on the size of the craft, assuming it was about 40 foot in diameter, how quickly it traversed the sky in front of us on the highway. And basically I determined it was moving at about 1,200 miles an hour, moving from the northeast to the southwest, and at about an altitude of 4,000 feet. The one thing that we did not see was that it take an unconventional maneuver that would indicate that it was not flying using some kind of winged surface, but it displayed, although it was rather small, it displayed no signs of any kind of wing surfaces, propulsion, didn't make any noise. So that's why we give it about an 85% probability of being a true craft of some kind that's unconventional in nature, plying the skies of our lovely planet Earth.
It was going very fast. It was
Covered about 20 degrees of sky in
Right.
4 seconds.
and it was almost like a red-orange light.
And it was resolvable as something that looked more or less like a football.
So your more recent experience.
more recent experiences, and honestly, since the craft back in the 80s, every year after that I've had experiences, sometimes multiple in 1 year. But this one really stands out because we videotaped it for one, and we videotaped it with a high quality camera. So if we had the right equipment, we could enhance the video footage and see more of the object.
His second experience was equally intriguing. A friend was looking out the window across the peninsula here towards what is called Port Angeles. We're in Poulsbo. And he was looking out the window and he saw a craft, but when Eric stepped up to the window to see it, he couldn't see it. And the guy says, "You can't see it, it's right there in front of us." And then he said, as an experiment, come a little closer, stand where I'm standing, and as soon as Eric shifted to the same position, he could see the craft, and then when he shifted away, he couldn't see it anymore. So this was an entirely different kind of phenomenon no one has ever mentioned to us in our travels. I'll leave it up to Eric to explain these experiences, but I found them both very intriguing from a point of view of characterizing the full possible spectrum of what's possible in terms of non-conventional aircraft that are now well established to be plying the skies of our planet.
That it was a Sunday afternoon, nice and sunny out, and my roommate, I was working in the garage, the garage door's open, my roommate was standing in the driveway just kind of looking up at the sky, and before I went into the garage I noticed there was a bald eagle flying around. So I'm working in the garage and he's just standing there, and I go, "What are you doing?" Just as a joke I said, "You see a UFO or something?" And he goes, come here, I don't know, you need to check this out." And so I go, "Okay," kind of laughing half-heartedly, and walk up next to him, and he goes, "Now," he's pointing, he says, "You see right there, do you see that?" No, I don't see anything. he keeps telling me and keeps pointing, and he's trying to hone in this spot for me to see, and he just gets frustrated, and so he grabs me and he pulls me right to where his head is so I can see the exact same angle he's looking, and all of a sudden I see this thing that he's looking at. And at first it just looks like a big black dot in the sky. We're like, what? That's not real. There can't be a planet there. There can't be a satellite just sitting right there. And we're probably looking at something that's maybe 30, 40 miles away, crow fly, at the most. And we try and focus in on our eyes, and we know something's wrong about this. And he says, go get your binoculars. I said, no, I don't want to go get my binoculars. I want to stay and watch this, So we ended up watching it for so long, and it stayed in the exact same position. And we actually watched a jet fly by it, and we saw the bird fly by. So there was something to compare, size and distance and so forth. He ended up, because we were waiting there for so long, going to get in my camera. So we videotaped this, and after we videotaped it for a couple minutes, out of nowhere on this beautiful sunny day, these high-lying clouds came in and covered this up. So we know it had to have been at least 30, 40,000 feet up in the air, because these clouds were the kind of clouds that you see at that elevation. And they just covered it up. And it was just so sad to see it disappear. But when we looked at it with the binoculars, we also had a pair of binoculars. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but we pulled out binoculars, and with the binoculars, you could actually see the shape of this craft, and that it was silver or gray. It could have been like a navy gray ship that was reflecting sun, making it look more silvery, or it could have just been silver. But it had flashing, blinking lights, like you would see on a normal piloted ship here. And it almost looked like it said USAF on it. It had some kind of black, verbiage on there that was obviously saying what it was. The other really unique aspect of this sighting is that if you didn't stand in the exact spot that my roommate first witnessed this in the sky, you couldn't see it. If you stood to the left, you couldn't see it. If you stood to the right, you couldn't see it. There was only one spot, and we truly saw it. We videotaped it. We used binoculars with it. There were objects in the sky to compare it to. And so to me, that just made me think there was a cloaking system in place that wasn't quite working all the way. And we just happened to get part of the defect, so to speak.
See, this is 2019 now. How long ago did you see that?
This was about 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
On Rhododendron Festival in Port Townsend, Washington.
And you were looking towards Port Angeles at the time, right?
That's right, yep.
Okay, once again, I'm going to echo that question I had before. Did you have, from what I got from you yesterday, you had a sense of something about this thing. And it was exactly what you mentioned. You had a feeling it was retro-engineered. You had a feeling like it was something of ours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It really felt like it was ours. And not only did it feel like it was ours, the sense of the fact that it was so large, that we're seeing this ship so far away, it had to have been at least 500 yards long. And to have a craft that big right here, that close to Indian Island, a huge naval base installation, the security and everything right here at the border, our guys would know that that's sitting right there.
And you mentioned a couple of conventional aircraft flew by it.
Yes, yeah.
And they may or may not have detected it based on this cloaking aspect that you mentioned in terms of being able to only see it from a certain angle.
Right.
Which means it was probably wrapping light from the background around itself. And you just happen to stand in the right spot where because that's how you make something invisible. You basically wrap light.
Bring what's behind it in front of it. Sure.
And then you can't see it.
Right.
So maybe they didn't see it either, detect it. Maybe it had the capacity for not being able to reflect radar signals, stealth, something like that.
Yep.
So we talked yesterday, we mentioned that about this guy McKinnon in England, who went in and hacked the NASA servers. And when he went into the NASA servers, he actually had two experiences. He saw an image begin to form of a craft on his screen, and it was interdicted before it finished. And he was so awed by it he forgot to say print screen before the server that he was getting the image from shut him down because somebody detected his incursion. And the other thing is they had a list of what? What did you call them?
A list of non-terrestrial
officers.
Yes.
So that's a bit of a correlation with this observation. So the craft you saw in 1985, circa,
Yep.
that seemed like it was like an ad hoc craft that somebody managed somehow to make work. And this other one seemed far more sophisticated, which you will not have a sense that it was actually retro-engineered. So between 1985 and 2009, there seems like there's been some progress.
Some serious progress.
In these craft. These experiences, you've said you've had many experiences.
Several.
And have you yourself had some kind of hypothesis? Now you've already mentioned one, the ad hoc craft,
Yep.
and then the retro-engineered craft. But do you yourself have a sense of other questions? Because most people now that have experienced this phenomenon now say, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt, there are some things flying our skies that we cannot account for based on conventional technology. But have you yourself arrived at any kind of a hypothesis about this phenomenon?
Yes and no. First off, seeing is believing. That's a very true statement. I understand the fact of not believing it until you see it. But once you do, it has a profound effect on you. And having seen something so real at such a young age has completely changed my outlook on life. Knowing something that people think isn't true or magical or beyond our powers, and I know it is true, definitely had a long-lasting and different approach to life for me.
And has it changed the way you live your life, you think?
Absolutely. Now, can I just rattle off all those ways it's changed my life? No, but I think it's made me a better person, honestly.
So you're open to much greater variety of experience than you were before, but do you feel like you're really grounded at the same time? Do you feel like, well, you own a business, you had the coffee shop we were sitting at in front of earlier, you got a business.
Right.
How do you feel if the public finds out that you entertain these notions? Do you think that's a negative? Or?
No, I think it's a positive. Either way you look at it, for me, that's a positive, no matter how they take it. But the fact that I am grounded, that I do normal things, that I do have businesses, that I do participate in society productively and actively, might actually do the opposite and rub off on these people that aren't believers. They go, wow, this guy's real. He's saying this. There must be something to it.
What would you say to other people who have had similar experiences but have been unwilling to come out and reveal what they've experienced? Because more than 60% of Americans believe UFOs.
Yeah.
In UFOs without necessarily having the experience. What would you say to the average person who might be viewing this, that could encourage them to come forward about what they've experienced? That doesn't mean they have to do a video on YouTube, but I mean with their friends, people they meet, strangers, being willing to reveal that. What would you say to them? How has that changed your life to be able to just be honest about things? Has it been a good thing or a bad thing? And what would you say to them to encourage them to come forward with any experiences they may have had?
Yes. It's a tough question, not an easy answer. I think sharing your experiences with people you trust is a no-brainer. Definitely do that. Now just coming out in random public and letting them know, that actually might be a good thing too, because who are you to them? At least you got the idea in their head. They don't have to believe it. And that's a good start. You know what I mean? Just bringing the awareness.
Is there
out.
something liberating about actually not hiding something inside yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's almost like you're keeping a secret, and to let the secret out feels good.
Yeah, so my question is, it seems like most of this craft that you have seen, you've identified it as belonging to Earth and not from another planet.
So, I've only spoke about a couple of these incidences, but several of the incidences take place either in space or in our higher atmospheres. And I've seen incredible light shows off in space with binoculars that are ships that are changing on a
Hide or one of those.
we have them here. What are
Starfish.
No, not the starfish. The jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Oh my god, just like jellyfish. And they were shooting out rays of light of beautiful different colors like this, and they were kind of dancing around each other, and then they just, and it looked like you could still see them going off into space. Like I said, just changing from bright light to just a faint light, disappearing.
Does that necessarily mean they come from other planets to you? Or perhaps are they a more psychical phenomenon than they are a nuts and bolts phenomenon? What do you think?
They could be just energy displaying itself, or they really could be beings. They really could be from another planet. They really could be aliens. Those could be, technical advances from other civilizations.
Just to wrap. So for you, it is no longer a question. The question of UFOs is settled when it comes to their existence.
Absolutely.
The question now is,
where do they come from? How do we tell what the difference is? I mean, I think it's very obvious by now that our government and our technology can provide at least an anti-gravity ship, at the very least
if
by
it's
now.
possible, we should be able to do it.
Yeah. So people say, look in the mirror if you want to find the answers. And I say, stop looking in the mirror and look in the sky.
All right, excellent, Eric. Excellent.